Welcome back, everybody. Let's go ahead and jump into our next major world religion, which is Buddhism. Now, we look at the map here, we can see that we're still in India, where we were with Hinduism, but now we're a little bit further north in northern India, kind of the borderline between India and Nepal. Now, unlike Hinduism, Buddhism does have a founder and a founding event. And if you remember from Hinduism, that was because Hinduism is so old that we just don't know that. So the founder of Buddhism is Siddhartha Gautama, and he was born in this area. The exact date is uncertain. We can ballpark it between 583 and 463 BCE. Now, interesting facts about Siddhartha Gautama. He was in a Hindu family, and he was in the ruling caste. So if you remember from our discussion of Hinduism, the significance of that means that Siddhartha had a very good life, and he had lived many lives in order to reach, remember, going up and up and up into the caste system, all those different life, death, rebirth, right, in order to reach that caste. He had a really good life, living in the royal palace, and it was very sheltered. Then as he aged, he became married, and he started a family, just like many people do. And interesting thing, Siddhartha felt very restless, unsettled within his soul. He felt like that there was something about life that was eluding him, that there was something, even though he had everything that he wanted, everything that he asked for was given to them, he felt that there was something else in life that he was not encountering. So, what he did one day, he went outside of the palace walls, which he had never done before. And on that trip outside the palace walls, he saw four things. Today, we call these the four sights. So the first thing he saw was an old man. So what did that teach him? That everyone ages. The second thing he saw was a diseased man, a sick man. And what did that teach Siddhartha? Is that we all, sooner or later, become ill. The third thing he saw was a corpse. He saw a dead man. What did that teach him? Is that we all die. And then the fourth thing he saw was a holy man. And this had a very profound effect on Siddhartha. So what happened to Siddhartha is that he went back into the palace and changed his clothes, cut off his hair, and left. And never came back. And this is what's called in Buddhism the great going forth. So he left the palace, he left his family. I know. And then he went out into the forest, and he joined a group of hermits who were out there and who were practicing extreme asceticism. And what we mean by that is they spent most of their time fasting, and they wore rags, they didn't bathe, and yeah, I know. And so what happened is that Siddhartha almost starved himself to death. He was near death. Then what happened is that he overheard a music teacher, right? And is the equivalent today of like a guitar or possibly a lute. a stringed instrument. And he heard this music teacher instructing his student about tuning the instrument. And if you've ever played a musical instrument, a stringed musical instrument, right? You know, with the tuning of that string of that instrument is very important, not just to get it in tune so you can make music, but a slack string, if it's very loose, it doesn't make any tone at all. But on the opposite, if you have a stringed instrument that's too tight, right, and you keep tightening that string, what eventually happens is, it snaps. So this taught Siddhartha what today we call the middle way. And the middle way is to avoid extremes. To avoid extremes. We should avoid indulging our bodies with sensual pleasures, for example, gluttony, as well avoid needless hardships, such as the extreme fasting that Siddhartha had just put himself through. So if you think about this, the middle way, right? Avoid extremes. When Siddhartha was living in the palace, his life, it was based upon sensual pleasures. Then when he was an ascetic, it was on needless hardships. So then Siddhartha went and sat underneath a fig tree for 49 days. And he was engaged in deep meditation, just thinking about the nature of all things. And then, what happened? Boom. Enlightenment. And this is when Siddhartha became the Buddha. So what the word Buddha means enlightened one. So Siddhartha became the Buddha. Now, what happened in that moment of enlightenment after all that meditation is that Siddhartha broke free from samsara and experiences nirvana. And now we have Buddhism, right? Because until this happened, Siddhartha was still a Hindu, right? And a lot of people say is that he's still a Hindu, which is true because Hinduism is a tribal faith. He was born into it. So now we have Buddhism. So this is the founding moment of Buddhism. Okay. Now, if we remember from our look in Hinduism, Brahman, you'll remember, is the oversoul, you could call it that, right? And that part of Brahman that's in each one of us we call Atman, right? Now, that doesn't travel over into Buddhism. Reason being is that the Buddha taught that there's no such thing as self. To believe that there is such a thing as self is an act of ego, and it should be avoided. But all of these others, reincarnation, karma, maya, samsara, they all carry over. Instead of moksha, now we have nirvana. We still have dharma, but now dharma refers to the teachings of the Buddha, not following the caste system like we had in Hinduism. So you see that a lot of the teachings of Hinduism are with us in Buddhism. So we'll pick up, continue in the next lecture.